12월 5일자 뉴욕타임즈에 어제 걸 내가 한 봤더니 지금 보니까 충격적인 기사가 우리나라에 관한 기사가 나와 있네. South Korea could be disappearing. 한국이 남한이 지금 지구상에서 사라지고 있다. 애들이 이 젊은이들이 애를 안 낳으니까 덜 낳으니까 지금 그런 내용인데 자 숨을 커피 한잔 하기 전인데 잊고 마셔야 되겠습니다. South Korea could be disappearing. What a dramatic bus death portend for Koreans and the world. For some time now, South Korea has been a striking case study in the depopulation problem that hangs over the developed world. Almost all rich countries have seen their birth rate settle below replacement level, but usually that means somewhere in the neighborhood 1.5 children per woman. For instance, in 2021, the United States stood at 1.7, France at 1.8, Italy at 1.3, and Canada at 1.4. But South Korea is distinctive in that it slipped into below replacement territory in the 1980s, but lately has been falling even more, dropping below 1 child per woman in 2018 to 0.8 after the pandemic, and now in provisional data for both the second and the third quarters of 2023 to just 0.7 births per woman. It's worth unpacking what that means. A country that sustained the birth rate at that level would have, for every 200 people in one generation, 70 people in the next one, a depopulation exceeding what the Black Death delivered to Europe in the 14th century. Run the experiment through a second generational turnaround, and your original 200-person population falls below 25. Run it again, and you are nearing the kind of population crash caused by the fictional superflu in Stephen King's The Stand. By the standards of a newspaper columnist, I'm a low birth rate alarmist, but in some ways I consider myself an optimist. Just as the overpopulation panic of the 1960s and the 1970s mistakenly assumed that trends would simply continue upward without adaptation, I suspect a deep pessimism about the downward trajectory of birth rate, the kind that imagine a 22nd century America dominated by the Amish, say, underrate human adaptability, the extent to which population that flourish amid population decline would model a higher fertility future and attract the converse over time. In the spirit of optimism, I don't actually think the South Korean birth rate will stay this low for decades, or that the population will drop from today's roughly 51 million to the single-digit millions that my thought experiment suggests. But I do believe they estimate that a plunge to fewer than 35 million people by the late 2060s, and that decline alone may be enough to thrust Korean society into crisis. There will be a choice between accepting a steep economic decline as the age pyramid rapidly inverse, or trying to welcome immigrants on a scale far beyond the numbers that are already destabilizing Western Europe. There will be inevitable abandonment of the elderly, vast ghost towns, and the ruined high rises, and emigration by young people who see no future as the custodians of a retirement community. And at some point, there will quite possibly be an invasion from North Korea. Current fertility rate 1.8. If it's the southern neighborhood struggled to keep a capable army in the field. For the rest of the world, meanwhile, the South Korean example demonstrates that the birth deaths can get much worse, much faster than the general trend in rich countries so far. This is not to say that it will, since there are a number of patterns that set South Korea apart. For instance, one oft-cited driver of the Korean birth deaths is a uniquely brutal culture of academic competition, piling cram schools on top of normal education, driving parental anxiety and student misery, and making family life potentially hellish in ways that discourage people from even making the attempt. Another is the distinctive interaction between the country's cultural conservatism and the social and economic modernization. For a long time, the sexual revolution in South Korea was particularly blunted by traditional social mores. The nation has very low rate of out of wedlock births, for instance, but eventually